Hi everyone, welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra, here again with prosecutor and criminal defense attorney and judge pro tem, Tim Forshey. I keep saying all this stuff because this guy's seen the legal system and court from all different sides.
It also means I can't hold a job too, don't forget. Right?
or you hold multiples at once, you know?
That is true. So.
And we recently had an officer-involved shooting here on the channel from here in Phoenix, my hometown police force. And there was some discussion on this one, and I want to talk about whether or not conduct can be justified if you're the one who put yourself in that problem.
To win the fight after the fight, you need help. After a use of force, I trust Firearms Legal Protection to help me win the fight for the rest of my life. From their 24/7 attorney-answered hotline to coverage for the use of all legal tools, Firearms Legal Protection has you covered. Get a discount by signing up at the link below.
So go watch the original. I'll put the link in the description of the badge cam. And this officer had actually been in a previous officer-involved shooting that was on the channel, and he did a great job in that officer-involved shooting. This one, the bus had reached the end of its line, and so then had two guys who wouldn't get off, one of whom we find out later has a drug problem, blah, blah, blah. So the bus driver calls cops, hey, I need you to kick these guys off the bus. They won't get off the bus for me. Officer shows up, kind of, fairly nonchalant.
Appropriate, I would say.
Yeah,
right?
a chill level, but jumps out, hey guys, kick rocks. You gotta get off the bus. I don't wanna get off the bus, I paid for the ride. Yeah, well the bus is done, you gotta go. And so dude jumps in the police cruiser. And then the officer jumps on the running boards of that car with the window down. And as the guy puts it into drive and starts to move, the officer shoots him 3 times. The guy got 100 yards in the cruiser or whatever, and died of his wounds. So now you'd normally say, okay, I've said this a whole bunch, and this is why we want to talk to the attorney, because shooting somebody stealing a car, as a general rule, is wrong.
It's illegal, not just wrong.
So wrong to the level of criminal behavior.
Absolutely.
Because we're using deadly force to protect property.
Property only, that's correct.
Now, some folks would argue that a police cruiser is a little different than that.
Well, it could be. So when can I shoot a fleeing felon? As a police officer or even as a private citizen?
Right.
And the answer is only when there is an imminent threat to other citizens in letting them
or the
flee.
officers, yeah.
I just saw him shoot 3 people. He still has that same gun in his hand. He's running away from me. Am I justified in shooting him in the back? Absolutely yes.
Tennessee versus Garner, just...
I just saw him steal a keg of beer out of a 7-Eleven and he's running away with it. Can I shoot him in the back? Clearly not. No. I mean, he may be spreading alcoholism, but he's not going to be, causing death and destruction.
Yeah.
It's not imminent, right? So the issue here is if my daughter is in the back seat of my car that you're stealing,
totally different
I'm
world.
going to shoot you.
I'm preventing a kidnapping.
If there's nothing in my car that I'm willing to kill or die for, then I'm not going to kill or die for my car itself either, right? So when we talk about a police car, I know we're talking about, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of communication equipment in there, access to police band radio. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff we don't want bad guys to get. But the big issue for me is firearms, right? So what firearms were in the vehicle and how are they secured? If there was a thumbprint technology lock on the quick access on the rack for the shotgun in the front or the AR, then in theory, the guy couldn't have accessed it very easily, right? He's gonna have to get a hacksaw and a torch and get to it later, blah, blah, blah. That's not an imminent threat to other people. Plus they can track that car. I mean, come on. They'd have had a helicopter on that car in the next 2.5 minutes. They really would have. So now, did the cop leave his AR-15 laying on the seat? Then perhaps I'm in imminent fear for my life or your life if he's driving away with that AR-15. I know he's intoxicated, he's not reasonable, blah, blah, blah. He's obviously larcenous. Maybe it's not a stretch to say he could have easily grabbed that gun and had a shootout with me 10 minutes from now. So I would really need to know a lot more about the condition of the police car before I could give a good answer on this. If there was something about that theft of that particular police car that posed an imminent risk to people's lives, then I think it was probably a justifiable shooting. But if not, and frankly, there probably wasn't, then I would say that probably was not a justifiable shooting.
So in this case, though, I don't think he shot him because he was stealing a police car. He jumped up on the running board to stop the guy and pointed a gun at him. Now, cops point guns at people all the time. And they are able to use a threat of deadly force in a way that a private citizen, frankly, just cannot.
Well, a police officer can use, actually private citizens in Arizona can use the threat of lethal force to stop a property crime.
Right.
It's really stupid.
A defensive display.
Really stupid for civilians to do it, but it's legal. Police have to do it all the time.
All the time.
If you and I see that guy there steal that guy's car, am I going to hold that guy at gunpoint while you handcuff him? I know I can't shoot him because it was just a car with nobody in it. I guess bad analogy for the case we're talking about. But I know I can't actually shoot the guy, but hopefully he doesn't know that. And so he submits and you get him cuffed, right? again, civilians shouldn't be doing that even though it's legal, but police officers have to do it all the time. So yeah, you're right. Police officers point guns at people when they know they can't shoot them all the time.
All the time. And now though he's standing on the running boards in the window, got a gun pointed at the guy, hey, you know, get out of my car. Guy puts it in drive. Now he starts to move. Now the officer goes, oh, wait a minute. Now I'm at risk. Now I'm at risk of great bodily harm because he's driving off in a car. I'm going to fall off, could go under the wheels real quickly. Now I really am at risk of great bodily harm. And now deadly force is justified.
I think
to stop that.
That's maybe his only argument. But of course, the problem with that is he's the one that jumped up on the running boards.
That's what I want to talk about.
The car's moving 2 miles per hour at that point. He could have easily stepped right back off of the running board. Maybe he falls down and bangs his head. But I mean, for him to get under the wheels of that car would be, frankly, kind of tough, right? Could it happen?
Yeah.
Sure. We've seen weirder things on your channel, but more than likely, he could have just stepped back off, maybe lost his footing and fallen down. Also, don't forget, he knew that this guy was goofy. If this guy wasn't really mentally ill or really high on drugs, I'd give you $100. I mean, the cop knew that. He had to basically sweep the guy out of the bus. I'm amazed the guy was able to stagger over to the police car and figure out how to get the car and drive. So,
well, and I said this in my analysis that I know I know a lot of Phoenix cops.
Sure,
I mean, I live in Phoenix. I've trained their firearms training unit. They're good men and women. Okay, so I've got plenty of Phoenix cops who are friends. So I asked a sergeant who is a friend of mine, and I said, "Hey, is it SOP when you leave a vehicle to lock that vehicle?"
Absolutely.
And they said, "Yeah, it's absolutely. In policy, policy says if you leave a vehicle, you lock that vehicle, unless it's such an emergency that you can't."
Correct.
This wasn't such an emergency.
This was 2 guys on a bus.
So basically, this was nonchalant enough to violate policy to lock the vehicle. That allowed access into the vehicle.
Correct.
Now, he's not responsible for that, but then you put yourself in the situation such that you can justify the use of deadly force. But you see how we put all these qualifiers together? That just feels like crap to me then. At the end of the day, it feels like an unnecessary use of deadly force.
Yes, it was. I mean, because again, assuming there's not a machine gun sitting on the seat next to the guy, right? What's going to happen? The guy's probably going to crash into a parked car 2 blocks down the road anyway because he's high as a kite, and then you arrest him and insurance pays for the damage to the cars. I mean, here we have a human life that's gone now. So and a career probably, and possibly the next, possibly freedom for our officer too, possibly.
And now we talked on a previous video about how, wait a minute, the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt. I need to convince all 12 jurors that this was criminal, and that's a tough standard.
It is, and that's a tough standard for this officer too, as it should be.
As it should be, right? So this is no different than the bodega worker in New York.
But it's always a crapshoot, and it's always better not to sit down and play craps.
And so there's a great statement, man. Every time you sit down to play craps,
you're risking things.
You're risking your money, right? And in this case, your life.
To keep the analogy even further, the house has the odds, even in craps.
So I look at this and I go, okay, can you put yourself in a situation that then would later justify the use of deadly force? I think Kyle Rittenhouse did exactly that.
The answer is yes. I've had dozens of clients do it.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
I don't think you can purposefully and maliciously cause that. That would be like provoking, right?
Yeah, well, if you set it up or if you provoked it.
You set a trap.
Well, in Arizona, we have a concept that if you start the fight, you lose the right to claim self-defense, which I think is a good statute.
Yeah, if you're the instigator or the provoker.
Correct. But does that, again, if you and I get into an argument about who took my parking space,
right,
and you push me and I push you and you pull a knife on me, am I in fear for my life? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was I stupid to get into the conversation about the parking space in the first? Did I put myself in the situation? Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Happens all the time.
So, I think that this officer falls under that same thing. Mm-hmm. Should he have done those things that led up to this? No, he shouldn't have. Can I say that what he did was criminal? Also no. Mm-hmm. Probably justified in the moment. But do I wish we would all do better?
Sure.
I don't think that what happened here was good, sane, sober, moral, and prudent.
Right.
And I'm just going to say, and this is one of the reasons Tim and I are friends, this is our standard. So there's a difference between the legal standard of reasonable and good, sane, sober, moral, and prudent.
Right. Err on the side of caution, guys.
And I think if you act in good, sane, sober, moral, and prudent ways, then you've got reasonable covered.
Right.
And you probably never worry about it in court.
That's right.
You probably never worry about the civil side. And to me, the bigger thing is, I'm going to go meet Jesus one day, and I don't want to worry about it before him. Because that's a bigger deal anyways, in my opinion. So anyhow, yes, you can put yourself in the position to need to use deadly force and still do so. But it's stupid.
But don't do it. Exactly right.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, buddy. Always.